if you've been told music is complex, you've been lied to. Because yes, Beethoven's complex, Rachmaninoff is complex. The same way Shakespeare is complex compared to the ABCs. However, we don't stop teaching the ABCs to kids because they're not going to be Shakespeare in 2 years. We still teach the basic, and the basic building blocks of music is just that. So the biggest pain point I noticed, and then as we met more and more homeschool families, it was this disconnect of like we'd love to offer our kids music, but we need to get a music teacher. What I didn't like about that was even being a music teacher, I'm having an experience and teaching kids away from their parents. Parents aren't having that experience together. Whereas with language, even if a parent doesn't have an English degree, they're still teaching their kids how to read, write, identify animals and sounds and this and that. So I wanted to kind of make a music program that can do that.
Hey everybody, Daniel Moss here. So that is a little taste of our episode this week. On the show we had Adrian Edward, who is the founder of ColorMeMozart.com. Brilliant guy, a real heart to serve other people. I just thoroughly enjoyed speaking with him. And so I want you to go ahead and check out the episode and stick around to the end. He does have a sweet little offer for you. So, check it out and let me know in the comments what you think about it. Enjoy. Cool. So, all right. So now that we've laid a little bit of the groundwork on that, I want to just kind of get back into some of that. You and I were having just an awesome discussion, and so I kind of want to just kind of get back into some of that stuff. And one of the things that intrigues me is you said you're from Argentina.
Yes.
Right. So when did you come here from Argentina? When did you make it over to the States?
So we were really young. My grandfather and my dad, they came probably in the 70s. I was very, very young. The great thing that I was extremely grateful to this day is that my parents spoke to me only in Spanish. So even though I went to school, I had my friends in English, watched TV in English. Luckily, my parents spoke to me only in Spanish. So even to this day, I'm completely fluent in Spanish to the point that if I when I visit Argentina and visit my family in Argentina, they can't tell. My accent is still so ingrained and so true that I can pass for complete Argentinian there. They don't know that I grew up most of my life here in the United States. And the same way I always like to tell people, same way you can't tell that I in English I speak fluent English, you know. So that for me was the power kind of language when I was young. But yeah, I came over pretty young. I was in my early single digits, you know, but we went back quite often to continue visiting family and stuff like that. So I got to experience both cultures, which is really, really wonderful.
I'm jealous. I ain't gonna lie.
Do
I'm
you speak any
jealous.
Spanish at all?
I can't. I mean, I can slightly understand it, but no, I can't speak it. I mean, it's kind of a shame because I would encourage anyone who's listening, if you do have that second language component in your home, make sure you do what Adrian had done for him, because my wife and I really do kick ourselves that because she speaks it fluently, but I literally forget sometimes that she's even Hispanic
Right.
because I just do. I forget. And then when I get around her family and they all start speaking Spanish, I'm like, oh yeah, that's
That's
right. Like,
right. That's right.
yeah, because she just didn't really bring the element into the home. And I do think there was a very missed opportunity, a very large missed opportunity with that. And so yeah, I would recommend anybody who has that
Do
to.
you have, I know, I guess you just answered it with not bringing the home. In your home with your kids, do they sense that they are part Bolivian or not at all, would you say?
I mean, it's a funny thing because like we just in our home, we just don't really we don't we don't really talk about any of it really, um we're the mosses, we're the mosses. We're Christians, we we just, I don't know, this is not something we really think about too much,
I
like how
gotcha.
white we are, how this or that, we just, I don't know, it's just not
Well,
something we think
here's
about.
a defining question. When the World Cup comes up next
There you
year,
go. That's a funny
that's
thing
when
because
that's when it comes out. So, will your wife put on the Bolivian jersey when the World Cup comes up?
so it's a funny thing because if it was Bolivia against America, which it'll never be because both of them are, but well, I guess they could play at some point, but like it she would, if it was those two matched up, she would root for America.
Oh,
She would
okay,
she would
interesting.
actually root for America. But her dad, the he's Bolivian,
Of course,
roots for
yes.
Argentina.
Really? Oh,
He's huge. Maradona, Harry, I'm not sure I'm
of
saying
course.
that
Yeah, yeah, that's
right.
right. Yeah.
Oh my gosh, he's like a
Messi.
fanatic, the hand of God and all these things. Like, oh,
I love
he's
that he knows that. Oh, that's
yeah,
great. Oh, he's
he
hardcore.
oh he's yeah, he's big time. So he roots for Argentina over anybody.
Man.
But Bolivia doesn't give him a lot of reason to root for them,
No, but I mean, it's still your. One thing is to root
Yeah,
for an individual team like Barcelona or whatever, because you follow a player.
yeah,
But once your national team comes up, even if my wife's from Venezuela, they're not particularly a great team, but when they come up, we root for them. Unless
yeah,
it's against
yeah,
Argentina, it's a different story. But
yeah. It's
you
hard not
know,
to. It's hard
but
not to.
yeah, you no matter what, it's kind of like you still root for your country. So that I was curious, what happened in your house if
Yeah.
Bolivian jerseys would go on, you know.
Yeah, yeah. A funny thing, the other day, my wife turned on the Gold Cup. It was Mexico and USA.
Oh
So
yeah,
that
yeah,
was kind of interesting.
yeah.
I just knew that there was a lot of things going on in there in people's minds. But it's my wife and I are actually very like kind of apolitical. We just don't really politics is like I had said to you before when we were talking, to me, entrepreneurship is like one of the most heroic things anybody can do. Where you're going out there, you're literally putting your money, your resources into a project with the hope that you can take care of your family by risking those resources for that
Right.
end, right? You're hoping, but you're also hoping that you can in order to achieve it, you're hoping that you can create enough value for other people that you can take care of your family, right? But
Absolutely.
the
Yeah.
but the only way to get to that goal, to achieve that end, is to have created value for people in the process. That's the only way. Um, Whereas politics is different by nature, right? Like, in order for politicians to get money in their pocket, it's really just about how much taxes how much are we just going to extract, right?
Absolutely. Yeah,
And,
yeah.
and so it's just different by nature. So we just, we I used to be very political and all that, and the more I've leaned into the entrepreneurial side of things, and hanging out with people like you, it's like, my gosh, these people have such great energy, like we were talking about, have such great
Yep.
energy, have a great positive look on life. And when I would think politically, it would kind of, I get a little negative, you get a little
Of
down on
course.
things.
Yeah, yeah. It's very rare that you meet someone that like very political and they're at peace.
Yeah,
It's not
yeah,
something that happens,
it's
So
disruptive.
yeah, enough to know what's going on. And to your
Yeah,
point, then spend the rest of the time locally, with the people in your circle, trying to be a positive influence, trying to, like you said, provide value both in friendship, family, church, community wise. Because at the end of the day, that's all we can really do. Like you
yeah,
said, what value can we provide through our companies, through our friendships, through our relationships, and that's all we can do. The rest of it is you're just screaming into the wind. And so I very much take the same approach like you. Yeah, we know what's happening, especially coming from different countries, like Venezuela and Argentina is always a lot going on, but it's just to be informed and that's it. And then we don't need to go like spend all day on it. It's let's get down on kind of the ground and help those we can help around us. That leads to a much better quality of life and a much happier life for me at least, and it
yeah.
sounds like for you as well.
Me too. Me too. And again, anyone listening, I would highly encourage to really like kind of digest what you just said, because it's definitely a real thing. And I think as homeschoolers, kind of bringing that positive mindset into the game, into the homeschool game. Like, you have a home, you have kids in there, and if you're bringing that kind of negativity that politics can fuel, and the
Yep.
tribalism and all that kind of stuff, that you bringing that in, is that really the element you want to bring? Whereas, sort of that more growth minded kind of thinking, you have like your fixed mindset and you have your growth mindset, right?
Right.
And when you bring that growth mindset in and the positivity of that, it's just like anything becomes possible almost, and if you have these little kids that they're under your care and your tutelage, why would you not want to give them that kind of
Absolutely.
mindset?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
One of the great changes that we have with my wife, we moved from New York to North Carolina, And one of the great things we've seen locally is meeting so many entrepreneurs to your comment in the beginning. And it has just been an inspiration for me. I thought I was such an energy filled person. And then I meet some of these guys and they put me to shame. They do not stop. And they're always in a good mood and they're always pushing and they're always trying to get better in every aspect of their lives, be better husbands, be better dads, be better, again, friends and business owners. And it's really, really so important who you surround yourself with, because at the end of the day, that is your reflection. You feed into each other, and you either feed kind of toxicity of like, hey, let's bum each other out with stuff that we can't change anyway, or hey, let's go make a difference. And it's hey, I'll help you on your journey, you help me on mine. So that part's been
Beautiful.
really, really amazing for me. We're really
Beautiful.
grateful for that.
Yeah, it's so inspirational. It's an amazing thing. Yeah, I've seen there's been a few cases where I've seen some homeschoolers out there, like some young teenage level homeschoolers who, have kind of got bit by that bug, right? The entrepreneurial bug, and they're
Yep,
like, "My gosh, this is amazing!" And I see them out there. I wish I could think of the name. I would share it right now, but they're out there and they're trying to like create that same thing for the young homeschoolers out there to get on board and really and start down that road. I love it. To me, it's like start early. My gosh, like start
absolutely.
early.
Yeah. Oh my God. With that,
Yeah.
I've always had, when I was in college and I got out, I always had this critique of college. Since I graduated as a music major, they never gave us any business music classes. They should
Yeah.
have totally given us that. What do you do
Yeah.
afterwards? So I agree, especially with entrepreneurship. It's something that we need to inculcate and push on kids to at least understand then they can make a decision if that's not what they want to do, but they should know how it all works because it is a very, very rewarding lifestyle. And I think most people think it's not available to them because if you're not in an entrepreneurial family, it seems so scary and daunting. And to this day, I'm like, why did I never get a business class from you? That should have been half my major should have been business. That was on me. I should have minored in business. But as music teachers, they should have taught us how to be successful in the business of music, and
Yeah.
that was never part of it. Sorry,
Yeah.
that's an aside, but I figured that was
No, I think it's so true because like even like my kids, my two middle kids are they're writing this like musical theatrical piece that
Oh
there's
wow.
this whole script that they're working on, and they're plugged in with these theaters out here in California. It's a whole network of them, and they're going to be putting on this show next year for this
Wow.
big it's really cool. And but one of the things they are really having to like see we're entrepreneurial, like they've kind of been around it, so they know
Right.
I don't some of these names out there, the Russell Brunsons of the world or whatever, like these guys,
Yeah.
right? They know them, they've read some of these books and they know but it's like they're just realizing like shoot, like actually that stuff applies to theater.
Right.
Like it applies to that, like I gotta market this thing, I gotta
Yeah.
and so it really is kind of a universal skill. And so let me ask you then, since in order to become successful, you got to like create value for other people. So you really got to kind of find the pain point, right? You got to find the pain point. Where are people struggling? How can you alleviate that pain for them, right?
Right.
So what would you say what pain point are you alleviating for homeschoolers? Like how would you define, how would you explain that? What's your
For
thoughts on that?
sure. Yeah. Oh, that's a great question. For us, a little background of where I started. I mean, I've been teaching for, ever since I graduated college a million years ago. But one kind of big change in my life was I became a music therapist for a special needs preschool. And that changed my whole kind of just outlook on life. It was just pretty really rewarding for me also. But one thing I noticed that a lot of times when these young kids were diagnosed, whether it was with nonverbal autism or developmental delays or speech delays or things like that, a lot of times in their IEPs, for those of you listening, it's their individualized education program. It's what dictates what therapies they're going to receive. Music therapy was never a part of it. What's fascinating about music therapy is that we're not actually trying to teach them music. We use music to do non-music things. What I didn't like about that was a lot of these kids, music was very, very, it connected with them on such a deep level that I started, and I talked to my director about it. I'm like, can I try a couple of experiments with some of these kids? Because I think they can play along to simple melodies. And so we had a xylophone there, and sure enough, I held up, whatever the xylophone colors were. I took construction paper and cut it on. They were able to follow simple melodies, whether it was Twinkle Twinkle or things like that. And some of them even sang their first words. So at that point, I realized music is much more than a tool to help other therapies. It could be its own therapy by itself. The fascinating thing was a lot of the parents, although they loved it, they didn't really know how to take it home with them. They didn't know, well, how do I do the music at home? I'm not a musician. I don't know how to do this. And so that's for me what sparked it. I'm like, well, I need to create something for these young, because I knew music was relatively simple. For anyone listening, if you've been told music is complex, you've been lied to. Because
Mm.
yes, Beethoven's complex, Rachmaninoff is complex. The same way Shakespeare is complex compared to the ABCs. However, we don't stop teaching the ABCs to kids because they're not going to be Shakespeare in 2 years. We
Mm.
still teach the basic, and the basic building blocks of music is just that. So the biggest pain point I noticed, and then as we met more and more homeschool families, it was this disconnect of like, we'd love to offer our kids music, but we need to get a music teacher. What I didn't like about that was, even being a music teacher, I'm having an experience and teaching kids away from their parents. Parents aren't having that experience together. Whereas with language, even if a parent doesn't have an English degree, they're still teaching their kids how to read, write, identify animals and sounds and this and that. So I wanted to kind of make a music program that can do that. And so that's what kind of started the journey for me. And so my entire goal with this is to tell parents, if even if you don't know any music, not only can you learn with your kids, but now you can become their best teacher, their first teacher, and the one that will actually give them fluency in music. And then in the future, just like with any other lesson, they can continue on with something else. But we really wanted to bring the family together again with music rather than have it to be one more thing that a kid does away from their parents.
Yeah. So okay, so one thought that comes to mind with that is why the age 6 cutoff? Or is there really a cutoff, and that, or is that just like a general guideline, or what's going
It's
on with that?
Yeah, it's just a general guideline. The reason I did the cutoff, we first of all, we had to come up with some age that that
Mm.
kind of cut it off. The reason I called it at 6 is for a couple of reasons. Our program uses nursery rhymes, so things like Mary Had a Little Lamb, Wheels on the Bus. So we noticed, especially in my years as a preschool teacher, once a child gets to be 7 or 8, even though the system still works, sometimes a child would be like, oh, these songs are for babies. So they won't identify with the material. The issue with music is that, just like anything in life, you need to identify. If I make you learn music with Mary Had a Little Lamb, clearly you're going to be like, hey, let's try something. Could we do some Ed Sheeran or something else?
Yeah.
And so that's why we chose that. And we're really focusing on that preschool, early education time. So it doesn't really matter if they start at 3 or 4 or 5 or 6. It just lasts 2 years from whenever they start.
Okay.
And if a child starts at 5 or 6, they'll be done by 7 or 8. Again, phasing out of that babyish phase, for lack of a better term, where they'll find the material to be infantile. We don't want kids to feel, bored with the material. So that's why we chose that. Again, it's not a hard, fast age, but
Okay.
roughly that age.
Yeah. So, this makes me think too. So, when I first started homeschooling, I was 24. I just wanted to play video games all day long. I'm just being honest. I mean,
Yeah, yeah.
I was immature. I was a dude in a woman's world. I had a hard time connecting with anybody because of that. I didn't want to hang out with women, you know. And no, nothing wrong with women. It's just
No,
you know what I mean? It was just you know what I'm saying? It's like I'm a married man. I'm not trying to hang out with all these women, and I didn't fit in good. I just want to play video games. I literally, at that point in time in my life, I hated reading. I thought learning was from Satan himself because I had to do 13 years of government schooling, you know. I thought the worst of all of it. And it was around 2010, somewhere around there, I met a mentor of mine who runs like kind of like a co-op school kind of thing, right?
Okay.
And these people are like OG, like original, like homeschoolers in
Mm,
California back when it was like illegal to homeschool, and they're like
right.
kind of hippie, like old school.
Love
the
it.
whole thing, right? And I love them dearly. They impacted my life so much. And one of the things that they did was, here I was a bozo. I mean, I was a bozo homeschooling my kids, and it, which is kind of a testament to homeschooling in a sense, because my kids are amazing. They really are amazing,
I love
and
that.
I couldn't even ruin them. You know what I mean? Like I'm like, for real. And so I was a bozo, and I didn't really know anything. I didn't know Jack. I really didn't know anything. And so these people took me under their wing, and they got me to like kind of start like I was a kid. They gave me like kid books, like
Man.
literal, like they gave me this book called Whatever Happened to Penny Candy by shoot, I forget his name, Richard J. Maybury or something like that,
Okay.
right? So this is a kid book teaching economic principles. I didn't know anything about economics. I couldn't have told you like anything, honestly. I didn't know anything. I thought, yeah, anyway, I won't go into that. But I didn't know anything. And what did they do? They gave me a kid book. And that was an entry point for me then to go, hey, that was actually kind of interesting. And that kid book gave me, it's almost like a jigsaw puzzle. When you start with a jigsaw puzzle,
Yep.
you kind of start with the corners, right? And then you go with the rest of the perimeter. And then so now you got this like foundation, and then then you start maybe looking for colors and things that you can pick out of the thing or whatever. But you're getting these like placeholders, you're getting these things that you can hang information off of to make sense
Love
of
that.
things, right? And that little kid book did that for me. And I've gone on to read Human Action by Ludwig von Mises, and some of these are
Right.
1200
Dense.
page treatises, right? But it was all because I read that kid book.
I
That's what
love
did
that.
it. And because I had that easy entry point, it took so much of the friction out for me. And I was a grown man. I was, at that time when I started reading that, I was probably 30, 32, I don't know, something like that, right?
Yep.
I was a man. And and um and here I was reading this little kid book, and it lit a fire in me. And I've gone on to read hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of books on all kinds of stuff because of that kid book.
Man, it's incredible.
And so I would say that I would imagine that your thing, I haven't messed around with your stuff, but I would imagine that it could create that same kind of entry point for people, even adults, I would imagine, because I know sometimes like it's I've seen it with other people too, but it's when you pick up a thing, sometimes you try to go in too hard on a thing at the beginning,
Right.
and it can be so daunting and hard and overwhelming that it kind of, there could have been joy there, and you rob the opportunity of there being any joy in it,
Correct.
right?
Yeah.
And so you kind of like create this obstacle in that process, and just going way back to a simple thing, so you could pick up those little placeholders for little things that you can hang things off of. Sometimes that helps.
Man, first of all, that story was, I'm never gonna forget that story. What a great story. And now you picked up on such an important part. You put yourself in a place where you said, I'm sure you reached that point where you're like, you know what? Like, I don't know this stuff. Just like you said, like we had this conversation this morning. We get together with a group of guys every week, and we were literally talking about that part where very culturally right now, people are so opinionated about everything because of social media that I don't hear people just say something like, you know what? I don't know. I don't know. Can you show me? Just asking questions, like you said, puts you back in that phase of like, I would love to learn this. Like, and very much like you, I am such a sucker for learning. Like, you could tell me you're into I'm trying to think of the most ridiculous thing possible. You could tell me you're a yo-yo champion, and I would listen to you for an hour, for you to explain to me what makes a yo-yo champion, how you got there. Give me your best yo-yo moves. Like there's something fascinating about falling in love with what you don't know. And it's not only okay to not know, but that's the only way you get to the other side. And I love what you said. That children's book, and whenever any of the parents, kids' parents that I teach, when they hear me speak Spanish, they're like, "Oh, I'd love for you to teach my kids Spanish." I always tell them the same thing. All you need to do is watch Spanish cartoons, you and your kids together. Watch cartoons, pick up a kid's book because, like you said, they'll go on Duolingo, they'll go hard, and that's
Yeah,
very hard to do. But
yeah.
that was you couldn't have phrased it better. When you sit there going, I didn't understand anything about economics, then you're in the best position to learn something. And
Yeah.
I love not knowing. Once you fall in love with not knowing, you're not embarrassed about not knowing. You're excited when you meet people that do know because you're
Yeah.
like, oh my God, you know this topic? You know about finances? Could you please teach me? Because I'm not good at finances. And that's how I got great at finances. That's how I got, I love playing soccer to this day. And even when like we played last week against he was an ex-pro player, totally mopped the floor with us, but I loved losing to him because I got to learn things that I wouldn't otherwise. Who needs to win all the time? And I was like, wow, he's amazing. And so you pick up things and you ask him for pointers. And I'm 20 years as senior, but I don't care
Yeah.
because I want to become a better player. And so I love that. That was the best way. Like you said, the entryway is the way to do it is as simple as you can get. And if people can get past oh, I don't want to do kid things, my God, they learn so many things. It'd be so great. It'd be so much more fun. Life is so much more fun that way.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. It's a funny thing too, like when you go down that road um of discovery and trying to learn things and I mean, we all kind of have this like confirmation bias stuff that we do, right? And we all have this like we have these presuppositions about things and I won't even go there either. But I can list so many ways in which I was this cocky young dude who just wanted to play video games, but I knew everything about the world,
Of course, of course.
I knew everything. And yet what happened was just from that one kid book and then going down this road, so many of my presuppositions, so many things that I was so arrogant, really, really arrogant about, got just stripped down, just
Right,
torn down. And it was very humbling for me actually. And it opened up this pathway where, yeah, it's like I actually want you to show me I'm wrong if I'm wrong because I don't want to be wrong.
right,
I want to know, I want to learn, I want to know, I want to be corrected. I want to and there's some you have to be in a place where you're willing to be humbled by that and being an adult reading a little kid book was pretty humbling in and of itself anyway, right?
right.
Like there's a part of me that was kind of like, wow, like kind of embarrassing, I'm reading a kid book, kind of, you know what I mean, that kind of
Yeah, of
I had
course.
to be
Yeah.
humbled that way. But but I thank God literally that I had that moment because if I didn't do that, if they didn't show me that and take me down that path, I don't know. I don't know, like, because I know that so much progress happened, not just in my own life from that kid book, but also in my kids' lives
Oh,
because
of
of it.
course.
It's
Yeah.
downstream, you know?
Yep.
And so then what about my grandkids? I don't know. Like I don't have them yet, but it's like I know there's this downstream of, well, we were talking before we started recording, right? And we were talking about that, and I was saying like, my family generationally is just kind of, we haven't
Complex.
done that well. we, have, we haven't done well, and so my mom kind of actually started us on that path of like healing. She did
Yep.
a lot of things in her life and there was healing. And then I feel like I got the torch. And then, but I'll tell you, that little kid book made just such a huge difference in our lives. And so all that to say that again, it's like, I know you're saying age 3 to 6, and I'm not the expert on this stuff, and I would definitely want you to be speaking on this. But when I see something like that, when I pick up a new subject, I actually flock toward those really simple.
Right.
I want the simple thing first. I really want that, and then I'm gonna progress, and then later on, I'm gonna then want different points of view on things. I want to
Right, right.
people
Yep.
competing. I want to hear why this guy thinks he's wrong, and all that. But initially, just give me something simple, man.
Yep.
So, I don't know if I'm not trying to write your sales letter and say, you got
No,
to
no,
write it
it's
for
all.
adults or something, but I'm just saying, you
Well,
know,
I will say this, what I did want to create, and we did hit on this a little bit before we started recording was um ch- I grew up very, at least it's very much the Argentinian culture. I always felt from my parents, I felt welcome into the adult conversation. It was never, oh, you're a kid, what you think doesn't matter. Get out, the adults are talking. Like I never heard that growing up. It was always, my dad was very much interested in what I had to say. He wanted to hear my thoughts on things. So we always ever since I can remember, we just always, he was a painter too, so he thought very creatively and artistically. So we talked about what life meant and, oh, what does that painting make you feel? Well, hey, look at the clouds today. And so I will say this to your point about the kid thing being, don't shut it out for adults. What I did want to create, and I'm very grateful that we did, was the program and the curriculum that we did is effective for kids, but it's also not washed down. So adults are still receiving very much a rich music education. It just happens to be covered in nursery rhymes. But
Yeah.
the underlying engine of that is legit music education. It has not been watered down or infantilized or the way, a lot of cartoons that we see, or they talk down to kids, or like, okay, kids, we're gonna do it. It's never that. And so I did want to make sure that we did something for parents, since they're the ones that are going to have to be teaching their kids. We did want to make sure that they also felt, to your point, that they're also getting a great experience. And so that is very much like inculcated in there. And in all the video lessons that I film, you will never hear me talk in a kid voice, or in a baby voice
Yeah.
or be, that type of thing. It's very much, hey, we're all in this together. And I do feel that. I feel that with my students, whether I have a 5-year-old student or a teenager or an adult, I treat them all the same way
Yeah.
because I think I was so grateful that I was given that opportunity. I want to make sure kids have that same feeling of like, hey, you know what? My opinion matters. And then parents at the same time, they can be like, hey, we're actually doing something together. It's not, they're not watering it down for their kids. And
Yeah.
and like you said, when you read that book, my hope, and like I said, I'm never going to forget that story, and I'm going to use your story from now on. I really hope that when parents do our program, they feel the same exact way. Like, oh my God, yeah, oh, my kids are having a great time, but I'm having a great time. That's what I
Yeah.
want to
Yeah.
happen. That's like our favorite thing to hear from families when they enjoy
Yeah.
music together.
That's awesome. Yeah, I kind of imagine there's probably some kind of room in there for that next thing you push to. I don't know if
Yeah.
that's we haven't even talked about that, so I don't know if you have any thoughts of anything like that, but I don't know, it just seems like there could be a like that next step kind of a thing.
Right,
I don't
right.
know. I really don't
Yeah.
know, but just the thought that I had right now, but um yeah, so okay, so how did you fall in love with music? Like how did that even happen? We're
So I didn't have it's funny because as much as I love to tell people to start their kids early, I did not have that experience. My grandfather, again, we're from Argentina. My grandfather was a sculptor. My dad was a painter. They were very kind of hippie-ish type personalities and great guys. And with that comes the artistic part that has its ups and downs. But one great thing about this, I got to try a lot of things. So I tried my hand at painting and drawing. Not only was I terrible at it, it just didn't draw me in. It wasn't my
Mm,
thing.
yeah.
And then in high school, out of all things, I was 14 at the time. I had to take either a piano class or a painting class. And I said, well, I tried painting already. Why not? And it was, I love this term I read in a recent book by this author, Susan Rogers. She says, there's some things, it's love at first listen. And that was
Mm,
for me. The minute
mm,
I saw a piano, like the connection between a written note and the piano, there's something that kicked in. I'm like, I think I'm gonna do this for the rest of my life, which
mm,
I was all over the map when I was a kid. I wanted to be a soccer player, I wanted to be a tennis player,
yeah.
I wanted to be an astronomer, I wanted to be that, it was a million things like every kid.
Yeah.
But music was the one thing I'm like, oh, good, my parents aren't gonna be annoyed at me that I'm gonna quit something else. This was like, there was just something about it, and that's it. It was like it's like a love affair. It just like it was nuts. Like, and then 2 years
Interesting.
later, I graduated high school early. I was like, let me get to college. Let me go to piano program in New York City at Hunter College, and then just fell in love with classical music and then jazz and then just music. It was love for music. There was something about it. And then here I am, 40 years later,
Yeah.
35 years later. I'm still. It was just something about it just clicked. And then we had this conversation with a lot of buddies, a lot of musicians at church here. Music it connects you with such a wonderful group of people too. Um, just like when you meet other musicians that love music, it's like not only can you geek out, but it's like when I go to Argentina, I play with musicians there. When I go to a church, I play with musicians there. When I get together with jazz guys, we play together. There's just something about music, I guess like a good soccer game. You just get together. You don't need to speak the same language. You could just have a great game. And then same thing with music. You could just share. everybody has their own different voice. And so that was my introduction to music. And it was like, oh, I need to try to convince everybody to do music. It doesn't matter if they're going to be musicians for the rest of their life, but it's like sports. I feel like everyone should do sports, and not to be a
Mhm.
professional athlete, just because sports has so much to teach you about sports, discipline and camaraderie and team playing as a team and helping each other out. And the whole New Zealand rugby team, they have this whole book about how important it is. Like if one person's weak, the whole team is weak, and you need to help it. There's so much to learn about character and stuff like that. So music for me is the same thing. And so yeah, sorry, that was a long answer. Maybe
No,
than
I
you asked for, but it just sparks a lot of memories. I'm like, oh, it was lovely falling in love with music.
yeah, that's beautiful. I no, you talk as long as you want to talk. I love that was great. So okay, I'm gonna ask you a couple questions, but promise me you won't let me forget this first question that I want to put it out there so you help me not forget it, okay?
Okay, sure, sure. Yeah,
So
yeah.
I do want you to expound upon that whole thing of what are all those other benefits of music. Okay. So I
Sure.
like,
Okay.
I do want to go there. I really do. I'm afraid I'm gonna forget. Those senior moments, they're starting to stack up, man.
Oh, I know.
Um,
Believe me, I get it. I
you
get
know,
it.
but I'm I also was just really fascinated as you're talking about that stuff of your childhood. So it's like obviously you went to school. I don't know how Argentinian schools were and the schools
Well,
that
I
you
went
went.
to school here in the States.
Okay,
So
so you're
yeah,
that's okay,
yeah.
gotcha.
And it
So
was
then
public school. Yeah.
so then that almost makes me kind of wonder even more. So I lost that in there. Okay. So you were here. So then I do know how the schools work here, right?
You do.
Um,
Yeah,
so how what did it look like then? Because I'm trying to picture how that looked, that you were able to just kind of like rub elbows with all these creative people when I always felt like I was stuck at home doing homework or something. You know what I mean? Like what was going on there that you actually had that opportunity? Because I just think it's so important for kids to be around adults and learning from adults. A lot of times they get so peer oriented. They get so,
right.
and it's like, you were around adults who were doing really cool stuff and you were getting hands-on things that then really where I felt like I was in a classroom wasting my time doing stupid stuff that I knew I was never going to use. You were actually doing really cool things that are meaningful, really neat things.
Well, I'm sorry. Yeah, full disclosure, that the reason I graduated high school early was because I felt like I was wasting my time in school.
Mm,
I had one teacher that changed my life, Mr. Ramsey. The high school that I went to in Brooklyn in Coney Island, it had for whatever reason, it had a longer day. It had an extra couple of periods. So he told me once, I was 14, he goes, "Why don't you just graduate early?" I'm like, "You can do that?" He goes, "Yeah." He goes, "You don't need to be here." He goes, "Just take some summer school, take a couple extra classes, and we'll fill out the rest of the credits." And it was like the best thing that he could ever done, because I very much felt like you. I'm like, what am I doing? I did not gel well with the school system, and grades were fine, but I was sitting there going, "There's so much." Even at my young age, I was like, "There's so much more to life. This cannot be it. Can't be what I'm supposed to be doing right now." And so I graduated as a junior at 16, got to college, and then I just took music as much as possible. I still did, you still have to take, aside from your major, obviously you have to take other classes, but I didn't even care about those. So I think that's what happened to me. It was very much not that I was surrounded by it, but I got to college quickly. And then once I got to college, my college in particular was very much a continuing education type college. So I had teenagers like me, but I also had adults that were like continuing because like everything in life, you pause, you get married, you have kids, and you go back to school. So it was such a hodgepodge of people that I got to be around a lot of different stages of people in their life. And so I was just friends with a lot of older people. So I think it was just much like we're saying before, since we have a very questioning, a very open, like, "Hey, I don't know something," I would just be like, "Hey, where can we play? Where can I play? Let's go play. Let's go play." And I just loved hearing stories of like Duke Ellington and Miles Davis and Charlie Parker. And they would just go from club to club to club to play to play to play. So my thing was, I just want to play as much as possible. So at the time, I would practice 5, 6 hours a day. It was just like everything, all the only thing I wanted to do. And so I think that's the only reason. I got lucky that just like your mentor changed you with that book, Mr. Ramsey, he told me something I didn't know. I didn't know I could graduate early and leave what was clearly gonna be another waste of a year of my life. He's like, get out of here. He was just like, you need to get out of here. And
Oh,
I was
for
like,
real.
God bless you, sir.
For real. That was a real gift right there.
Thank
We
goodness.
need more people like that in our
For
lives.
sure.
My
Yeah, yeah.
goodness.
Yeah, he
Uh,
cared. He cared. He saw something,
yeah, that's really beautiful thing. Are you familiar with John Taylor Gatto by any chance? You ever heard
I'm
that
not.
name?
I'm not.
Okay. So for anyone listening, I definitely recommend checking out his books. He's got a few of them. There's one called Weapons of Mass Instruction that I recommend the most because it's kind of like it kind of like merges the other two works. And I can't even remember the name of Dumbing Us Down, and I forget the other one's called, but that one, Weapons of Mass Instruction, is really great. But that
I
guy,
love it.
John Gatto, was New York State Teacher of the Year back to back. I forget, I think in the 90s, something like that.
Wow. Oh
Yeah,
my
so
God. I
he
can't
so
wait to
he
read
was
his
like,
book.
yeah, and his Dumbing Us Down book, what that was a collection of speeches that he gave when he was winning all his awards, right? And he was smashing the school system. Like in
Right.
his speeches, he's just blasting them. And he would do things like, yeah, he would like, from what I've heard from my mentors, they actually knew him personally. And I actually have one of his books from Gatto. He used to go around to conventions and stuff and sell his books and whatnot.
Oh,
I
okay.
never got to meet him. He's died, of cancer or something like that a few years
Oh,
back. But he they knew him personally, and apparently he would, like, I don't know, kind of like sneak kids out of the classroom, at like, not sneak them out, but allow them to leave so
right.
they could go off and do, I don't know exactly a detail, but it reminds me of your teacher.
That's
There's just this
awesome.
attitude of like, get out of here, like you're
Right.
wasting your time.
Yep.
And here he was winning these awards because he was actually impacting kids by basically doing the opposite of
Right.
school and
Oh my
blasting.
God.
It's
I
so
cannot
funny.
wait to find. First of all, I'm already looking for my next read,
Oh
so I
yeah,
am buying that book tomorrow.
yeah.
I'm ordering that book
it,
tomorrow.
it is a good book,
I
and
love the title already is
yeah,
perfection. Yeah, yeah,
Weapons
that's
of
like
Mass Instruction. Yeah, it's really
so
good.
good.
It's an easy read too. It's good. You also named an author, and I didn't catch the name of that book, and I wanted our listeners to be able to hear that.
Yes, so her name is Susan Rogers. She's a fascinating character. She was Prince's sound engineer back when he did his main hit, his big hits like When Doves Cry and Purple Rain and everything. Then over the years, what I love about her story too, and you can read it in the book, is she went to a concert and she's like, I think I want to be a sound engineer. And I love stories like that, that someone just wills something and then just goes down the road and makes it happen, because we live in a world where very much it's like the weight is like, well, you can't do that, and I
Mm,
hate that. I hate that
yeah,
rhetoric, and so her story, I loved it. And then she became a neuroscientist out of all things, and now she's a professor at Berklee College of Music, so she is a beast.
yeah.
And the whole book is about your listener profile, why you like certain types of music and how it
Whoa,
affects our brain. It is
dude.
such a fun read. And so ever since her book, I bought a record player. Now I'm having like listening parties at my house. Like she just like talk about like sparking something. I was like, I think I like this. So when you come over, you have to keep your phone in the kitchen. We go to the reading and playing room. Everybody puts on music, and then you explain to your friends that are in the room why that song means something to you, and then you listen to it through the ears of that person.
Yeah.
It's such a fun book. It's a really, really fun book.
Really cool. Yeah, that's awesome. I know my oldest daughter would love that book. Because she's into sort of like psychology and music. I mean,
Oh, she would love it.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I mean, she's just, oh my
It's
gosh.
called This Is What It Sounds Like. That's the name of the book.
Okay.
Yeah.
Dude, yeah, she will love
Yeah.
that. Okay, cool. And so yeah, and one of the things I just want to point out to the listeners is like some of that stuff that I'm hearing from you, that freedom that you had, that those experiences where you're rubbing elbows with people and you're having an opportunity to do real meaningful things. That's some of the stuff that really makes a homeschool fly, like really soar and take off. And I would say to everyone listening, you're a good example of that, and like lean into that in your own thing. Also, another thing that I think is really important is when a kid is young, to be reading to them and bonding with them,
Yes.
and just really like creating that safe environment where they know they're loved and they're bonded with their family. And I'll tell you, I think your music thing is like it's perfect for that, right?
Thank you.
It,
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, one thing that it's funny because you had asked, I think you asked me this prior to us recording. You said, do you do a lot of social media? And
mm,
since we do have to kind of not only promote, but also get our message out there. One reel that I filmed actually yesterday was we're very big on learning about different instruments and different styles of music. one of the um, one of the fascinating stories that I read in another book by Oliver Sacks is called Musicophilia, and he talks about the neuroscience of music. Um, he talks about how the music that we listen to like affects our brain so much, right?
Mm.
And but the problem is we tend to fall into the same habit and listen to the same type of music, so we don't explore different things. And one of the craziest things, this is going to blow your mind, the rhythms that we hear when we're 6 months to 12 months, so as an infant, are the rhythms that we feel most comfortable with for the rest of our lives, like
Okay.
forever. And so when I first started that, I'm like, that can't be right. That's impossible. However, I started analyzing my own life and my wife's life. So I grew up in Argentina. We don't do a lot of dancing in Argentina the way other Latin countries do. So I've had to take salsa lessons. It doesn't come naturally to me. Whereas my wife grew up in Venezuela, they dance at parties all the time. That's part of their culture. They don't do it consciously. It's subconscious and every day. So I'm like, that's interesting. Even though I'm a musician and I understand rhythms, I still have a problem dancing. Why? Because I didn't grow up with it. I didn't listen to it. We didn't listen to that type of music. That's why some rhythms, like Indian rhythms, are so different than our kind of Western rhythms, and we find it awkward to move to. And then I'm like, that's really fascinating. So one of the things that we make sure to do, to your point about doing stuff together, listening together, and having families bond together, is we teach over 40 different instruments, not how to play them, but how to recognize them visually, audibly, how they sit in different styles of music. You don't need to like every style of music, but you need to be aware that we don't just have pop music. We don't just have regular four chord music. There's so much richness in the world. And I think, just like you said before, reading to your kids, you don't want to just read the same type of book. You want to read different types of book and really enrich their kind of imaginative vocabulary by exploring different types of books. Same thing with music. You want to make sure that it's like it runs the gamut of like, hey, we listen to Indian ragas, we listen to Russian folk music, we listen to French, bistro music, we listen to Polish polka. And again, a lot of them you could be like, that's not really my cup of tea, but now you're aware of it, and you'd be surprised how much that widens your ability to, hey, now enjoy something else. Because what I find the most fascinating from that book from Susan Rogers, she talks about why we like certain types of music. And sometimes I like really weird music. And I'm like, why do I like that? I'm like, oh, I know. Because I grew up in a house that my dad would play. My dad, so full picture of my dad, I would go into his art studio. He'd be there. He had the little beret on, listening to Bob Marley, listening to Sonny Boy Williamson, like the blues guys. He would have the old 8 tracks. He'd have his easel with his paintbrush. Those images are like seared in my brain. And
Wow.
so that's why that music means so much to me. And so I would
Yeah.
say the same thing to parents. Read to them, put on different music, listen to it, ask your kids. They know how to answer these questions. Ask them, what did that song make you feel? What did that piece of music make you feel? What instrument did you hear? Do you like that instrument? Like I think we've gone away from asking kids. We expect
Yeah.
so little from them, and I hate that. And I
Mm.
think that's what I disliked about school so much. They didn't care what I thought. And maybe it's not on them. Maybe since they had to teach 30 kids in a classroom, I know that's not easy. So I don't want to, come down on the teacher for not doing, oh,
Yeah.
they could have done better. The system itself does not lend itself. But to your point, homeschool settings absolutely do. And kids will blow your mind if you ask them, what do
Yeah.
you think? What do you feel? They might even tell you, oh, this makes me sad. Oh, why does it make you sad? That's really interesting, and I think that's really interesting to explore. And I think parents would get it. It becomes really interesting for parents because then we get to see, what do I think about this? And I think as adults, we forget to ask each other. Like, let's say we were listening to a piece of music together. When's the last time somebody asked you, Daniel Moss, like, tell me what you feel when you listen to this piece of music?
Yeah.
I don't get that asked that as an adult, so I find that really interesting. So yeah, I
Yeah.
totally agree with that.
Yeah, that's fascinating. That's really beautiful. It's funny. My wife's my wife's the music person, right? Like I like music, don't get me wrong. I really do like music, but for some reason I've always been more drawn to like if I'm gonna like when I work out to a podcast or an audiobook.
Oh, that's
Like
interesting.
I'm weird, dude. I'm weird. I I've never gone to music, but when music's on, I can enjoy it, right?
Right.
Whereas my wife was, a singer, a dancer. She did her Bolivian folklore kind of dancing.
Wow.
she grew up, like, she learned English from MTV. That's how she
Mm,
learned English, right? So music is a big part of her life, and she gave that to our kids, and they're like, so I do have my son, who's my third in the pecking order. He he's the writer, he's the one that writes, scripts and screenplays and whatever. And so he's always thinking about music, like, how does that impact the scene? What emotion is this evoking,
right.
in this scene right here? And so he talks to me about something, and it's really fascinating. It really is. It's just, I think I was born stunted. I don't know what happened to me, but I needed what you got, my man. Like, you didn't have that. My mom should have bought what you got,
We
like, when
weren't around. I know. I'm sorry. We're some years late.
Oh my gosh. Yeah,
Oh,
so on this topic though, on neuroscience, so, like, I wanted to hear, so, like, as far as those other benefits, like, we just talked about how, it can help a family bond, and it can create that connection. Good. And that is so critical for homeschooling. And a lot of times homeschoolers get so focused on their box curriculum, and it's
right.
all about grinding it out, and you're literally copying school at home. And it's kind of like,
Yeah.
just because it's called
Agreed.
homeschool doesn't mean what you think it means. You know
Yeah,
what I mean?
exactly. Exactly.
Like, don't make the connection. It's you're doing, and they get focused on that. Even hear them like, "Oh, my kid's 4. What curriculum do we start them on?" I'm like, "Oh
Yeah.
my gosh!" Like,
Yeah.
let your
You're
kid
missing the point.
play.
Yeah.
Yeah, let them read to them. And so it's like, you want to read books that don't have a lot of friction. They're just fun and easy. And sounds like that's a lot like how your curriculum is too, or your music curriculum is just like fun and easy, and there's not a lot of friction. It's just something that you can just do joyfully. What are those other benefits that you kind of hinted at earlier that someone might not think about, but because people don't know these things, they downplay music, they downplay,
Right.
because they're thinking, well, when I went to school, this is the stuff I did. So my kid needs this early and often, early and often. The longer I can get them to grind it out and grit it out, right, the better they are. And not knowing they're probably stunting things they shouldn't be
For
stunting,
sure.
and
Yeah.
creating animosities towards things they don't want to create animosities to. But they're probably thinking like that because they're a product of that system.
Of course.
But it's like, sell me, like, what am I get why when I'm geared that way, taking time away from that
Right.
to sit down and do music with my kid feels like a waste of my time.
For
It's
sure. No, and it's totally understandable. It's funny because I tell my wife a lot of times, I'm like, one thing we have to realize is that we are coming up against people don't have music as a like you said, top tier. Like we got to make sure they get music. It's not top tier. It's whether it's sports or drawing or that or like creative arts or acting or that type of thing or music. It's definitely always on. Hey, great if we can get it, great, but it's not essential. What I'm besides the bias I clearly have with music, just because I love music, the interesting thing is the past few years I've gone down kind of the rabbit hole of I didn't realize there was so many studies for so many years. Susan Rogers being one of them, Oliver Sacks being another one, Daniel Levitin being another one, all these great books. And they talk about again the neuroscience of music and how it affects our brain, ranging from not only infancy, but also how it affects like someone with dementia and things like that. What's fascinating about the earlier you learn, this goes for any language. And I'll ask you this. Do you have a conscious memory of not being able to speak English and being able to speak English? My guess is that no, right? Most of
Yeah,
us don't.
no.
Yet when you look at a baby, we don't tend to look at a baby and be like, that is a learning machine. We think they're helpless and defenseless. However, the way God created us is yes, in certain aspects, maybe they can't feed themselves or clothe themselves, but for learning, we are made to absorb in such a rapid way that it's almost frightening how
Mm.
quickly. Um, so the studies show, like for instance, our auditory system is developed enough in the third trimester inside the mother's womb that they can already start hearing the intonations and the word the vibrations of the mom's voice That's why when the baby's born, they'll only respond to the mother's voice and not another mom's voice or the dad's voice or that type of thing. So that's already developed enough. Then the rhythm thing that I mentioned before. Then another fascinating thing about our brain is the way our brains are designed is if I knock on this table, the part of your brain that just lit up when I knocked is not the same that lights up than if you and I would sing a song together,
Mm.
or if you go to church and sing a song, or if you're singing along in the shower. Different parts of your brain light up. And so now they're realizing when a child does music, sings music, creates music, it lights up a huge part of their brain, including the language part of their brain and their communication part of their brain. But the more fascinating part is when they're actively participating in playing an instrument,
Mm.
the amount of their brain that lights up is crazy. So that's why all the statistics that maybe some listeners have read, kids that do music early on almost inevitably do better in math and all the other STEM subjects. So it is connected. It has nothing to do with them eventually being, again, like I mentioned before, we're not looking to create little Mozarts, or as much as our program is called Color Me Mozart, but we're not trying to create little musicians. We're trying to bring all the benefits that music has, both the emotional, the bonding, all that stuff, but also the actual cognitive benefits. And so it is without a doubt kids that do music, all the people that you respect, let's say the big brains, right? Like where you're the Ben Franklins, the all the people in history, they almost inevitably were all musicians. There's just something about music that activates a huge, huge part of our brain. And every study proves the same thing. Now, fast forwarding to people with dementia, the amount of times that someone will not remember their family, so they won't remember anybody, they'll somebody will put on a record, like let's say the wife of a husband that has dementia, they'll put on a record, and if they were an opera singer, the minute that record starts, that person will transform and sing opera as if they were on the stage. And it's like not a set, and with the same, there's just a part that it connects to at such a deep level.
Yeah.
And so
Wow.
every book I read, it just gets deeper and deeper and deeper. I'm like, all right, if I wasn't convinced before, now I understand why music has such a, you could listen to, both of us can listen to certain songs and cry because it brings a memory back of, oh, when my dad, your memories with my dad. Oh, we worship in church. That brings, that's why I think also too, and I feel deep why even biblically for us, there's Psalms is 150 chapters of songs.
Yeah.
Why music is so important biblically. There, there has to be a reason God created us this way. And it can't just be, oh, it's fun to sing. That's why I get upset when
Yeah.
it's just like infantilizing. Hey, kids, let's move into. That's fine. That's fine. But that's music is so much more than that, you know. And
Yeah.
so those would be, I would say, just a handful. I mean, even when I give my talk at the conference, there's so many just of those moments of those studies where you're like, wow. Even I get blown away. I'm like, really? And at first I dismissed them. I'm like, that can't be true. And then as time goes on, I'm like, of course it's true.
Yeah. No, that's really good stuff. My gosh. Yeah, I think it is a shame. There's other countries out there where they actually prioritize music really, really well,
Correct. Yeah.
right? And
Yep.
and they've caught on to that where it's like, whoa, well, this actually needs to be one of the primary subjects because it is that important, and we're just like for whatever reason we're not catching on properly here. Or maybe I don't. Do you feel like there's a trend where people are catching on, or how do you feel?
I so I hate sounding like a cynic, because my wife always says, "Oh, it seems like yes." I would say on the whole, luckily, I feel like there's a trend. However, I think the power of social media, unfortunately, is so strong in kids that it's just we're constantly battling that. Luckily, I feel like homeschool families are very attuned to that of like trying to like mitigate kids not being so exposed to it. Um, but I definitely do see a lot more. Even a post came up the other day of like just kids playing together. Like we're such a fan of that. Like we always do recitals, make sure like I love when brothers and sisters play together. I always tell parents, when they come up to, I'm like, you need to learn four chords and play music with your kids. Like it is so for everybody listening, music is so unbelievably easy. It's so welcoming. It's not what you think it is. It's like every song you hear on the radio is four or five chords tops, like
Yeah,
tops. And so it's very accessible would be the right word.
that's fun.
So I definitely see a trend. I'm hoping that trend continues. I'm hoping as more people see the evils, I have to call it that, of the trap of social media and the trap of modern distraction of like our phones and our tablets and our computers and that stuff. And I know we're all battling that, and I'm
Yeah.
hoping to create more of an environment where, like you said, when you're reading to your child, that's all you're doing. It's a
Yeah.
physical book, you and your child. Same
Yeah.
thing here. This is just instruments, voices, and just being present with each other. So yeah, I'm hoping the trend, I'm hoping we're a part of that trend to
Yeah.
continue.
Yeah, I could see how, especially in the homeschool world, I could see how what you're doing could definitely do that, and I hope it takes on or takes off like that. I hope people catch on to it because yeah, it's weird. It's like what I've seen since we don't have to go too. I know that you got to get up early tomorrow, so I don't want to take up too much time. But what one thing that I have seen since 2020, right? 2020 was an interesting time because
Yep.
it's weird. My mom actually, my mom, my mom, and January 1st, she was saying to me, Daniel, I don't know, I was praying really hard and I just want to let you know, I feel like God told me that this year is going to be the year where we get clarity of vision,
Oh
2020
wow.
vision. We're going to learn and see things for what they really are that we don't even know. Like right now, we all don't understand right now, but we're going to see it. I mean, we
Wow.
learned some things in
On January,
2020.
man.
Yeah,
Go
I couldn't
mom.
believe it. I was like, okay, mom. All right. What 2020? Okay, that's really cute. That's a sign from God. Yeah, 2020. Okay.
Yeah,
Dude,
don't mess with your mom. She clearly knew what she was hearing.
dude, it was crazy. But so with 2020, I think a lot of people did kind of see like, okay, I got to get my kids out
Mhm.
of that system. And I'm one of the kind of people who are like, yeah, get them out like at all costs. I don't even care if you're like how I was almost, where I was just a gaming doofus, and like, as long as you're loving your kid. I loved my
Right.
kids, so like, I loved them and I spent time with them, and I was gaming. I was just a bozo, right? Your kids are better off there in that than they are,
Agreed.
like,
Yes.
just get them out, right?
Without a doubt. Yeah. Yeah.
So I'm a big proponent of that. But what I will say is that I think there was this knee jerk, it was a reactionary thing to what they were seeing on COVID, because of COVID. All the teachers that were now there, you're seeing what's going on in the
Mhm.
classroom on these,
Yep.
internet, right? And so they're like, I got them out, and it's this reaction to this thing that they're feeling and experiencing in the moment, but then it's just a reaction, right? And it's good. Again, get them out. I'm all for it, but there's some level of like, okay, we got to kind of like know, what are we doing with homeschooling? What are we trying to
Right.
accomplish, right? Like, what are we doing? And unfortunately, what I saw a lot of was you get them out and you just school at home. You're just
Right.
schooling. Like that's it. And again, keep harping on it. I'd rather see that than not,
1,000%. Yep.
right?
Absolutely.
But at the same time, why stop there? Why stop there? When you can go the full mile, the full length of this journey, and really include in these really enriching things for your children. Like, understand that system that you saw on, like, right there in front of your face, that you finally had clarity of vision on, that you needed to get your kids out of. Don't copy that system. Why,
Right.
why are you copying? It's almost like you should literally do a complete 180 from it, right? I would argue that you should, but to the degree that you could do a 180 from that. And I think what you're talking about here is a really good example of how that system doesn't really lift up this one of these key components
Right.
to what it even means to be a human. There's something naturally inborn in us as human beings, that music and rhythm does something to us, right? And so we are born with that, and for us to deny that and have our curriculum and our education be something that denies it
Right.
is a sign in and of itself. That there's a problem, and so yeah, I'd love to see what you're doing take off. I'd love to see parents get away from that mindset of what they're doing over there, get away from that, and get to some of these basics of connecting with your kid, doing music with your kids,
Right.
reading with your kids, playing with your kids, and not focus so much on, a lot of times we get caught up in like the metrics, the measurables, like what was the grade on the test, you know?
Absolutely. Yeah, yeah. No, and I agree. I think our messaging has changed so much. Before, all I would do was talk about the benefits of music. Now, the message has changed completely to your point of saying, hey, this is what it can do for your family. There's, like you said, there's so much more to life than this. And I was one of those kids. I remember sitting there going, and I was a fine student. I never gave my parents trouble in terms of bringing home D's or anything crazy like that. And
Mm.
I still brought home grades. But I remember feeling, I'm like, you're like, I got a
I
couple of
took
these.
care of that. I took care of that.
Oh no, I should admit, just so I full transparency for everybody listening, I did get a D in Spanish out of all things because I cut the class. So yeah, so I was not the exemplary student, but grades were fine. But I remember thinking, but these teachers aren't really, they don't really care about teaching me this. And again, nothing on them, just the system itself. Was it conducive to the excitement of learning? And I was like, learning is kind of fun. It should be fun. So I think now our job, especially with what you're doing with this podcast and what you and your wife are doing is, and what we're doing as a company is letting homeschool families know, you know what, metrics are fine because you have to have some type of, system where you're like, okay, at least I know they're on the right track. However, there's, like you said, we left the other system for a reason. Let's not go ahead and carbon copy that one. Let's see how much more we can get out of life with our kids, with our community, with our family. And I think that's on us now to show them. Because, like you said, when you started homeschooling your kids, you didn't know what you were doing. And a lot of us don't know at the moment of learning something new. It's like, oh my God, what am I doing? And I think it's the job of those that have been through it. And now that you have been through it with your wife, where you could say, you know what? We're going to show you the ropes. I know you're nervous, but we're going to show you not only where you can start and what you can do, but how rich this can get, how amazing this can be. And that's really on us now. So now the burden's on us to make sure we get that message out
Yeah.
correctly. And it's not just about like, hey, make sure you do this, this, and this, and this, but really let them know, hey, you know what? You thought this homeschool experience was going to be fun. It's going to blow your mind and it's going to be the life you never thought you could have. That's the message we need to get to them.
Yeah, that's beautiful. It really is beautiful. Yeah, there's a thing that happens to people. So like I'm thinking you got a new homeschool parent, kids are young and they're going, "Oh my gosh, what do I do?" And I would say just lean into the thing that comes natural first of all. Love your kid. Like
Right.
that's easy. And I'm telling you, like if you just do that, trust me, you're ahead. You're just
Agreed.
ahead.
Yep.
And then later on, if they're, if they, let's say they're new to homeschooling and their kids are a little bit older, um they're we have these terms like deschooling or like
Yeah.
kind of like detoxifying from school, like you know take 6 months, take a year to just get away from all that,
Yeah.
like it, like Neo when he took the red pill, right? Like
Yeah. Yeah.
just understand like that thing, that thing's that thing, and like you just have to start seeing things different, right?
Right.
And so just take that time, be patient with it, but connecting with your kids is like just so important with these things. And again, because what you're saying about all the influences that are out there and all these things, and you got to really make sure you have a good, strong bond with your kids. And I see what you're
Absolutely.
doing as being a beautiful way to kick that off and get things going in the right direction. I appreciate that.
Thank you.
Um, well, Adrian, I know you get up early, so I don't want to take any, but at the same time, are there any other like final thoughts or anything that you would like to say before we call it?
Yeah, I think like first of all, again, I'm always going to be biased to music. However, I will say this, whether it is reading with your kid, doing a sport with your kid, doing art with your kid, drawing with your kid, doing music with your kid, I use the language very deliberately. Do it with your kid.
Yeah,
Do it together. Like that's the fun part of parenting, of life, doing things communally, doing things together, doing things in group. I think that's what builds everything that we have, everything that matters in life. So I love what you said. It's like, you know what? You don't need to, you could be nervous, you can be, but just start. There's a podcast I listened to, I forget the guy's name. He made such a good quote. He goes, when your ignorance of things is the cost of not having success, right? So let's say
mhm.
my company isn't where I need it to be. That's because I'm still ignorant to what a person with a successful company has. And it's okay. It's okay to be ignorant. It's okay to, like we said before in the
Yeah,
beginning of the chat, it's okay to say, you know what? I don't know what I'm doing. However, I'm going to love my kids. I'm going to spend time with them and I'm going to do things that matter. And
Yeah.
I think if you just, like you said, lean into that without thinking about it so much, we're never going to get everything right. But if you lean in with that love and desire to like provide that for your family and for your kids, you're going to still rock it at 90%. And that's going to be a million times better than what the system will offer your kids at 30% because they just don't know what they're doing. They lost the plot and we just need to regain control of our families and who
Yeah.
better to do that than us that love them, you know?
Man, I could not agree more. You, as by nature, you have yeah, a lot of times parents are like, I don't have a degree. I don't know pedagogy. I don't know.
Right.
You no, you don't understand. They're having to try to make up for all the disadvantages that they have naturally. You are just you are inborn. You're naturally, you know, you naturally have an advantage over the education of your children just because of um a the way that you love them, which other people can't offer, and
Yep.
then b that intimate knowledge of your kid on a one-on-one basis um is something that is going to help you know how to like guide them and direct them in life in a way that, well, I mean, sometimes we get lucky with a teacher who could say, hey,
Yeah,
get the heck
sometimes.
out of
Yeah,
here,
yeah, right.
right?
Yeah.
Because there's some good teachers. There's people out there who really try and they really try to connect, but they are up against some really bad odds, right?
Yep.
And it's a really big disadvantage for them. A parent has that advantage, so lean into your advantages, lean into the things that come natural, that are there at your disposal, and then look at things like what Adrian's got, you know, like tap into these things because these are
And
the
and
things that really matter, you know.
and Dana, if I could say this, you said one last thing I wanted to say, and I know now what I want to say lastly is this. I've never met someone that leaned into their family that said, "Oh, I regret it." There are things in
Yeah,
life. It's like meeting someone that said, "Oh, I regret exercising, working out.
yeah,
Oh, I regret learning a new skill." No one ever says these things.
yeah,
It's almost comically ridiculous to say out loud. Same thing with this. For
yeah,
anybody listening, never, those words will never come out of your mouth. Oh, I'm so sad I read more to my kids. I'm so sad I had these great experiences. I'm so glad I leaned into my family. I'm so glad I taught them all these things. I'm so glad I learned these things with my kids. Those are things that don't come out of a human's mouth. So why, knowing that that's the end result, why would you not start? So that's the
yeah.
last thing I want to
Yeah, just kind of reverse engine it from
Yeah, exactly.
reverse engineer it from there. Beautiful. No,
Absolutely.
I agree. I could not agree anymore. Okay, so where could people find you? You want to put that out there and let people know?
So we're on Color Me Mozart everything. So our website is colormemozart.com. We're on Instagram, Color Me Mozart, YouTube, and yes, it's me. It's a family-owned business, so you'll hit one of us, and
Yeah.
we love what we do. So you could reach any of us at any moment. If anybody has any more questions or wants to learn more, see what lessons are like and see what it entails. But I promise they'll have a great time.
Awesome. Awesome. Adrian, thank you so much for your time. Thank you for what you're doing because, like I said, I really am a big proponent of homeschooling and we need people like you out there, on the front lines, providing these types of things for families that are meaningful and make an impact on the child, the family, and society. That's how I always see it. And so it's bigger than even just one life, but
Yep.
even if it is just one life, these kinds of things matter, and so I appreciate everything you're doing, and it's been a pleasure to meet you, and I'm very thankful for the opportunity to have gotten to meet you, so thank you.
Oh, same here. Thank you so much for having it. I'll return that not just because you said it, but I'm really grateful for what you and your wife are doing. And likewise, just meeting kind of that same energy of people that want to bless other families. It doesn't happen every day. So thank you again. I really, really appreciate that.
Yeah, blessings to you, brother. Okay, cool. Well, if there's anything that we can ever do in the future for you or whatever, just always reach out and let us know too. But that's the end of this, my man. So
Love it, man. Dude, I really, and I mean that earnestly and honestly, it really is a pleasure to meet you. I can
yeah,
tell when someone's like, "Oh man, if we were in the same city, we'd be friends
yeah,
in life." And
I
I'm
I get
grateful.
the
I'm grateful
feeling.
for that.
Yeah,
Like just the way you think and stuff like that. And like you said before, not just an entrepreneur, but also as a believer that also sees the world the way you do, and so it's really neat, and that's really really awesome.
yeah, no, definitely. Well, very good. That's a wrap for today. And you go ahead and stick around. We could chat for just a second, but everybody, thank you so much for tuning in. And until next time. Hey guys, well, all good things got to come to an end. And although I could talk to Adrian for, I don't know, days on end. It feels like such an enjoyable guy to talk to, so insightful. He does actually have a special offer for you guys. If you go to his website and enter in Homeschool Collab, just one word, no caps, just type that in. He does have a special little deal for you, so go ahead and give that a shot. I think if I remember correctly, it's 15% off. And then make sure you check out the next episode. We have Joey Mascio on the show, and hopefully I'm not saying his last name wrong, because he did tell me during the episode how to say the name properly, and I might be butchering it now. But Joey is an amazing guy also. He's got a lot of incredible things to say about personal development and the ways in which those things might apply to a homeschooler. And, he's got some really neat things to say too. So I recommend you checking out next week's episode also. And that's it for this week. Take care.